Hi everybody, welcome to this video where I'm going to talk about food sensitivities and other sensitivities, and if you've been doing things like brain training and it's not working, what you might do instead. So if this is an issue that is affecting you, you're noticing you're sensitive to food or other things, for instance, I've worked with people who have developed sensitivities to washing powder, perfume, and they have... So if this is an issue that is affecting you, you're noticing you're sensitive to food or other things, for instance, I've worked with people who have developed sensitivities to washing powder, perfume, and... Sorry about this. They have... So if this is an issue that... I think I left one of the YouTube channel video pages open, so it started repeating the recording. So made that same mistake last week. Okay, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to learn. So if you've just joined, do feel free to say hello in the chat. Let me know where you are in the world, and let me know if this is... I'm presuming if you're here, this is an issue that is affecting you. But it is a topic that I see coming up over and over again, especially when people have been learning brain training programs. They say, I'm doing brain training, it's helping with some of my symptoms when it comes to food sensitivities, other sensitivities, it's not shifting. So you may be able to calm symptoms of dizziness, fatigue, pain. If you're finding that your body's still reacting to certain foods, might be wheat, dairy, gluten, even random safe foods, and it feels like your system is overreacting to everything, then I have been there. Okay, so in this video I want to share possible reasons why this happens, what may be going on, and some science-based tools that help me start to shift these reactions. So Jenny saying hi, Simon, nice to have you. Natalie, pink waving, lovely to have you join and say hello. So and yeah, let me know if this is, what's your experience of this. Okay, so as I say, I developed clear sensitivities to wheat, dairy, grains, sugar, sadly alcohol. Both a doctor and a very respected herbalist identified that I had these sensitivities, and certainly every time I ate anything with sugar in it, yeast in it, I would have a reaction, and that included alcohol. In my situation, I was also diagnosed as having candida, and that was what was triggering those responses. So that's something to look into. Okay, candida is where there's a yeast overgrowth, and yeast feed off sugars and other yeast, so for instance yeast in bread. So I cut certain things out of my diet. I cut out wheat, I cut out sugar, I cut out alcohol. I cut out things like mushroom, bread, because it contained yeast, and I went on a kind of anti-candida diet. That's certainly over time reduced some of the symptoms, and I'm not saying that that's what's going on for you if you're experiencing this. There may be other things going on. So Daniela from Germany, nice to have you with us. So if you just joined, feel free to say hello. Natty says hi, Jenny, and of course Simon. So nice to have you all with me. So first thing is, it's really important to consult a doctor to clarify what's going on, whether there's sensitivity or intolerance which is happening in your gut, or an allergy which involves the immune system. Okay, so you might
need to look into whether there's some mast cell activation syndrome going on, which is different to an allergy. There is some overlap, but there are also differences, and maybe I'll talk more about that in another video because it's a whole topic in itself. So what I came to realise, and this is in my situation and your situation might be different, this is supported by research, is that these food reactions weren't just about the food itself. In my case, the body had got into a kind of false alarm loop. So, for instance, the immune system can mistakenly react to harmless pollen and create hay fever. And in the same way, it's possible that it can start overreacting to food. So we need to unpick what might be happening. Okay, so as I say, this is what might be happening. I invite you to consider this aspect, but there may be other aspects that you need to explore and address. As I say, MCAS being one of those things. So, for example, let's just talk about allergies for a moment, because I think it's interesting. When I was about 6, I developed hay fever, and I have a vague memory of my mum talking about hay fever a few months before I went into a field that was full of wheat and I started sneezing. And I had hay fever from then till about 2007, I'm guessing, 2006, 2007. And what happened is, as part of my hypnotherapy training, we learnt about allergies. We learnt how it can be an overreaction. So, for example, I've talked about this before, that a woman with an allergy to roses was shown a rose by her doctor, and this is medically documented, and she started having an allergic reaction. However, the rose was made of plastic. Okay, so that tells us there is something going on at another level. It's not just the body reacting to something, because obviously there was a perception that she was being exposed to a rose, but actually she was being exposed to a piece of plastic. All right. So in the same way, small amounts of food can trigger a range of symptoms, and obviously, with allergies that can be life-threatening. So whereas in contrast, food intolerance often affects only the digestive system and causes less serious symptoms. So obviously, if you've got a food allergy like a nut allergy, I'm not encouraging you to take any risks. I would encourage you to carry on following your protocols, including making sure you have an EpiPen with you at all times. So, but what's interesting is that some immunologists describe allergies and sensitivities as learned mistakes of the immune system. And these responses get wired in the body, and especially in states of stress or threat. So my hay fever was always worse when I was tired or stressed. And I did take these tissue salts, which helped, but I did notice that my allergy was worse during periods of stress. And the process that I used was a kind of combination of hypnotherapy and nervous system work that helped my brain unlearn that overreaction. It was a light bulb moment. I remember suddenly realizing I did this process on myself, and it was winter, so I couldn't really test it. And I witnessed my friend who had a cat allergy being taught this process, or being guided through this process, and she picked up this big fluffy cat, and she said, "This is amazing, because normally this would set off a reaction. My eyes would be streaming, my skin would bubble up." And when she said that, I thought, really? But actually I saw for myself. She picked up this cat and she said, "This is amazing, I'm not reacting." When we got back to the training, after about 20 minutes, she did have some bubbling up on her skin, and I was a bit skeptical when she said that, but sure enough, her skin bubbled up. But she said this is about 1/10 of the normal reaction. And the hypnotherapist trainer did some more work with her, and within about 20 minutes that bubbling had disappeared. And she said that is amazing, because normally I would have to take antihistamines. Okay, So as I say, just to be clear, allergies can be life-threatening, so take your normal sensible precautions. But what was really interesting is when we were doing this training, a friend of mine who did have nut allergies said that when she was reading about allergies, we were reading this book, which I might have on my shelf somewhere, she started having that reaction that she would have when she was exposed to nuts. What does that tell you? Let me know in the chat. What does that tell you? All right. What she realised is that there was some element of something else going on. Okay. If I was working with someone with any allergy, if it was something like a life-threatening allergy, I've never actually worked with someone with a nut allergy, but it would have, what we're trained is that has to be under medical supervision. Okay. So, and we do need more research to look at how effective these approaches are. Okay. But what's also interesting is when I was training someone and we started talking about allergies, this woman said, I have allergies to rabbits, dogs, cats, horses, and she had all of those animals, hens as well. And she said it started with just cats, but it developed into allergies of other things. Again, what was really interesting, she said, as I'm talking about this, I can feel this allergic reaction starting. And there have been times when I thought to myself, have I really resolved my hay fever? And then I noticed just a little bit of tingling in my nose, in my sinuses. And I would simply do this process that I learned for literally a minute or so, and those symptoms would disappear. And I haven't had significant hay fever since 2007, okay? And again, I've talked about this before, but when I realised, wow, I didn't have hay fever last year, I didn't have it this summer started, I haven't had hay fever. And then a week later, this guy came round to do some work. He was a big muscly chap. He was a glazier, had a big piece of glass to fit in the wet room. And he had a hay fever, and I told him it's a mistake of the immune system. Plastic rose, told him about that. And I said, look, if you like, I'll work with you, I won't charge you. Let's see what results we get, because I haven't done this before. And he didn't get back in touch. He came back to finish the job a couple of weeks later. And he said, sorry, I haven't been in touch, just been busy. But something really weird happened. So after you talked to me, by the end of the day, my hay fever had disappeared. And it hasn't come back. And I spoke to him a few years ago. He said, I still haven't had hay fever since then. Okay? That's pretty crazy, isn't it? So we can influence our immune system by training our thoughts. Yes, I'll talk a bit about that. What's possible. As I say, this does need more validation, more research. But this is interesting work, and this process that I did on myself came about because an immunologist who's got prizes, awards from the World Health Organization for his work said, like an allergy is like a phobia. It's an overreaction. And he was talking to a hypnotherapist and practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and a process had been developed to help people with phobias. And so he was curious, could this work for allergies? And he started using it, or adapting this process and using it with people, and found that it helped. And that's the process I did on myself, and I haven't had hay fever since 2007. Okay, so that's around 18 years ago. Okay, so why might brain training not work for these kind of not necessarily allergies, food sensitivities, etc.? Well, consider that eating is not optional, it's something we have to do. So your exposure to the trigger is, Jenny says, wow. Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? I think, as I say, it'd be really interesting to do more research in the area to get better understanding of what is possible, what is going on. But if you think about food, your exposure to that trigger is constant. And if your body's already in fight-flight mode, that repeated exposure can reinforce the fear rather than help it. Okay? So if let's say, I know that when I've eaten bread in the past, it gives me bloating sensations in my stomach, then it's possible that I might get more stressed if I'm eating bread. There were times when, I remember one time being in Germany and I went to someone else's house. I was visiting my godmother. We went to someone's house. The only food there was cake. All right. And in the past, at that time, I wasn't eating any cake. I wasn't eating wheat. I wasn't eating sugar. And if it had been a year or two ago, I might have got pretty stressed. But I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to really enjoy this food. I ended up eating about 3 or 4 pieces of cake because there was chocolate cake and carrot cake made by 2 different people. So I felt, to be fair to both of them, I had to have 1 piece of each, and then I was still hungry, so I had another piece of chocolate cake and then another piece of carrot cake. But I actually made sure I got myself into a relaxed state. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And it was only later we had soup and bread, and that still wasn't quite enough to feed me up. So I ended up having 3 bowls of soup, and everyone was like, wow, you've got a great appetite. I said, oh, I'm pretty hungry. And this soup is delicious. So the host was very happy that I was complimenting her soup. Okay. But consider that difference. In the past, I would have been stressing, is this going to make me bad? That is going to cause tension in my body. And of course, if there's tension in my body, stress in my body, my digestive system is not going to work as effectively. There's going to be more alarm, okay? So when the trigger is internal, we know, for instance, that if the immune system thinks something is a threat, then it's going to mount an immune response. That's going to mean a release of histamines. And so it's harder for the brain to feel safe, okay? Unless we actively create a sense of safety around the experience. And so this is where safety signaling becomes key. So your brain needs to get the message, receive the message. This food is safe. I am safe. Okay? And for that to really land, it needs not to be just a logical notion. We want to feel that safety in the body. So how do we do that? Well, let me talk a little bit about what helped me. So I'll say I can't really go into the actual process that I used in depth, but for now, what I will just say, it was about, number 1, just getting my physiology in a relaxed state. Okay? So I began to shift from trying to stop the symptoms just to creating safety in my body and feeling safe around food. I started to reframe the sensations in my body. I talk about the difference between using the word symptoms and sensations. For me, the word sensations is less emotive. Someone commented a while back, actually they preferred the word symptoms. So whatever works for you, okay? But often people recognise that the word sensations is just a little bit less emotive, okay? So instead of seeing the symptoms as damage, I started seeing them as a communication from a system that was trying to protect me. But it was just doing that a little bit too intensely. It was like this false alarm. It's a bit like sending in the army to collect rubbish. That's what my body was doing, okay? So this helped me shift from fear to curiosity. The body is complex. There might be all sorts of things going on, but we just want to explore, be curious about what is possible. This is one of the things Paul McKenna, who's a hypnotherapist, says, let's see what's possible. I worked on generally reducing the stress in my system. And I did that by thinking about how I approached my day from the start of the day when I woke up to when I went to bed. And there was a time when I was waking up in the morning, the first thing I'd do when I wake up is I'd check my body for symptoms. I'd find symptoms and I'd go, oh no, and I'd start stressing about that. And what was really interesting is sometimes I'd wake up and my body felt okay. But it was as soon as my brain went online and kind of remembered, oh yeah, I've got ME, I've got symptoms, then it's almost like the symptoms all came back. Let me know if that's something you've ever experienced, but that was something that I experienced numerous times. Okay, I'd wake up totally relaxed, my body was relaxed, and then I'd kind of come into consciousness and those symptoms would generate. And sometimes I generated symptoms in a nanosecond. Okay, I remember a time when I was about to start a training course. I was stressing about it because I wasn't sure I was ready to do it, and I'd wake up in the night completely relaxed, and as soon as I remembered, oh yeah, I'm stressing about this, starting this course, I would generate symptoms in a nanosecond. Daniela says, can I ask what exactly is hypnotherapy? I'm trying to think whether I've made a video on that. I think I need to, if I haven't, maybe I haven't. I need to do a separate video on that. But basically, it's in very simple terms. If you think about the fact we've got a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. So our subconscious programming, for instance, our subconscious, what happens is the brain is an energy saving device. And let's say when I am with a certain person, I always get a bit triggered. If I do that a number of times, the brain thinks, when Simon's with that person, he gets triggered. So let's make that an automatic response. That becomes a subconscious response. And hypnotherapy is about quietening the conscious mind so that our subconscious mind is more available to new ideas and that it can accept those new ideas. Okay, so that's a very brief definition, but I think maybe I need to, I'm going to save your comment, and I think I need to make a video where I explain a bit more about hypnotherapy. And Jenny says, I know exactly what you mean, yes. And Natalie says, I have experienced this and never knew why. Just remind me what I was talking about what you're replying to. So, but I've got an idea. I just want to check. So, I worked on that general stress reduction and nervous system regulation. So I was spotting when I was going into the stress response. And I was taking care of the part of me that was triggered. And this really helped me shift the body into a state of regulation. If you'd like a simple demonstration of that, I actually worked with someone this morning when I did the resilience group coaching, and I demonstrated a simple process, okay, for taking care of the part of us that is getting triggered. So if you'd like to watch that video, comment group below and I'll share the link where you can join the Building Resilience Facebook group, where you can access that recording, other recordings on a wide range of topics, and some free resources. Okay, so Daniel says, thank you, you are very welcome. Oh yeah, wake up and you appear not to have any symptoms and you feel good. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. All right, so yeah, if you'd like to watch that video, comment group below. If you're watching on YouTube, I will put the link to the Building Resilience Facebook group where you can access that recording. Jenny says group. So yeah, I'll put, sometimes these comments don't show up. I think I'm supposed to change some settings. I always forget. So I will put, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put the link to that group below this video. But I really recommend that that session we did today. We talked about that topic. We also talked about being less affected by other people. All right. And how to just really connect to your true brilliant self. Daniela says group as well. Okay, so after I finish this video, I'll post the link underneath this video. So click on that link to join the group. As soon as I see that request, I'll let you into the group. You can watch today's video. Okay, so The next thing I did is really focused on breath work, just 3 or 4 slow breaths before a meal to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. You know, we know it's really important to eat when we're feeling relaxed, eat slowly, not, you know, eating on the go, all this sort of thing, because it helps your body work properly. Okay, that breathing helps your body get into that rest and digest state, which is what the body needs to process food without reacting. Okay, I'd also do some gentle somatic grounding. So I might put my hands on my chest, or one hand on my chest, one hand on my belly. I think it's useful to put a hand on the belly when you're thinking about eating. And I'd say to myself, I am safe. This food is nourishing. I'm safe to eat. My body is learning to trust again. Just let me know how that felt for you to just hear me say that. I can feel in my body as I was saying that my body just started to relax. Okay? So that sounds simple, but it just helped bring me into a regulated state even before I began chewing. Okay? Because can you see the difference between eating a meal saying, oh, is this going to cause some upset? And it's all okay. And I remember actually that time when I was in Germany eating 4 pieces of cake. The next day I didn't have any consequences of that, other than felt a bit tired because we had a quite long evening and I had MCAS. But, you know, I didn't have any stomach sensitivities. Okay, so Daniela says, calming. Isn't that interesting? How long did it take me to say those words? Less than a minute. Okay, so the next thing I would do is visualizing. And so this is something I could do even before I was eating. So I'd picture I'd just, number one, get myself into that relaxed state. Do the breathing. Then I'd visualize myself. Visualizing my body being relaxed. Visualizing the food going into my digestive system. My body digesting the food. Taking the nutrition, delivering it into the cells in my body. My gut lining becoming stronger, calmer, my immune system working exactly as it should. In this case, recognizing the food was friendly and the immune system could just chill out in the back room. You know, there's this comic strip called The Numbskulls, where, you know, there's little people inside our brain, little people inside our digestive system, the immune system. You can imagine the immune system as little people or whatever you want. And I would just imagine those little people just chilling out, playing cards, nothing to worry, to concern myself here. We can just let the body carry on with digesting food and just rehearsing that peaceful experience. And this taps into neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change with use. So Jenny says, I can definitely see the difference, but it's very hard for me to create this safety in my body. It's like my body forgot how to relax. All right, so I'm going to share a few more strategies for this. What I want you to consider that it's a retraining process, okay? If, let's say, someone has spent 100% of their time in a state of stress, put your hand up if that's you, or put a Y for yes in the chat. That was me. I was that person when I had ME/CFS. You know, I was an anxious child, all right? So I had years of experience of generating anxiety, okay? There was a time when I couldn't even do a live session like this because I'd be too anxious, all right? But if you know, for example, that you've spent, so Jenny's saying why, yes. If you know that you're anxious a lot of the time, have you had the experience, Daniel's saying yes as well, have you had the experience of being relaxed for a short period? Let me know in the chat, Jenny, okay? I think I know the answer, all right? Based on an experience that happened a week ago, all right? So if you can feel relaxed for a moment, is it possible you can feel relaxed for 2 moments, 3, 4, 5? Is it possible? I remember the first time I felt relaxed for 10 minutes. Wow, I can feel relaxed for 10 minutes. If I can feel relaxed for 10 minutes, I can feel relaxed for 20 minutes. And that relaxation grew and grew and grew. Okay, so this is where the brain training comes in. We practice. Okay, so Danielle says yes for a short experience. Okay, if you can experience for a short experience, what is also possible? How many minutes do you think you felt relaxed for? Okay, and however many minutes it was, is it therefore possible? You've got evidence you can feel relaxed for a short period. And therefore, is it possible you can be relaxed for growing periods of time? And I literally went from being stressed most of the time, a lot of the time, to absolutely the other way. Okay, so sometimes I still get stressed, and I know I have to practice all the tools I've learned to bring myself back into balance. Okay. So, let me know. Oh, thanks, Simon. I feel hope. Exactly. Okay. I'm one example of someone who went from being a really stressed, anxious person, pretty neurotic, I realised when I started learning this stuff, to someone's much more chilled. I've worked with many, many, many people who've experienced anxiety. I had one person didn't even leave the house for 18 months because they were so anxious, couldn't even answer the door or the phone, and she ended up first of all going to a place called Centre Parks, where she went abseiling. She said, I could not have done this before I worked with you because I was scared of heights. She sent me a photograph of her in Australia, someone who didn't leave the house for 18 months, couldn't answer the phone or door because she was so anxious, so low self-esteem. She went to Australia. She got on a plane, flew all that way, sent me a picture outside Sydney Opera House. All right. So there's absolutely reasons for hope. Okay. If you can do it for a little bit, you can do it for longer. What can you do when there is ongoing stress and emotional stress at home? Okay, so that's a bigger topic. I have made videos about dealing with other people. I would say I kind of need more information, okay? How would I break that down? Number one, we've got to look at, are we setting boundaries? Are we able to set boundaries? Are we able to converse with the person who's adding stress to our lives? I had to set boundaries with someone in my family because every time we talked about my ME/CFS or the ME/CFS and the condition and the strategies for healing, we got into arguments. So I said, look, I'm not talking to you about this anymore. So we might need to set boundaries. At the extreme, we might need to consider whether, if things aren't going to change, whether we need to be there. We can be there, all right? That's the extreme. And I've had some people, for instance, I remember working with a few people who recognised they couldn't be there and they had to move out. All right, so I'm not, I don't know enough about your situation, but we need to think about those things. What do I also need to do to be less reactive? Okay, so sounds like there's more, obviously that's something you might need to work with someone one-to-one. Obviously you're welcome to come to the group coaching. You can bring that issue and we can explore that. I think you requested information about the group, so I will post a link to that. All right, but it looks like there's a bit more, there's more exploration. So if it's your son, feel free to let me know how old he is if you want to. Many people have challenges with their children when they hit teenage years, and so we need strategies for dealing with that. All right, so I'll keep going because I don't want to be on too long. So consider next step. I focused on, with certain foods, gradual exposure. Okay, just to be clear, there was a time when I cut out dairy and wheat because it was disagreeing with me. Okay, And now I can eat anything I like, but I tend not to eat supermarket bread, which is crap quality in my opinion. If I do eat bread, I tend to eat sourdough, which is more easily digestible and is very nice. But I don't eat much of it. I don't eat much wheat. I don't eat much sugar. I don't eat much dairy. Occasionally I'll have ice cream. And it doesn't have too much effect, but it's not something I choose to eat much of because I think my body likes it when I don't eat those things. I have a super healthy diet. I eat lots of healthy, nutritious food, but there are certain things I just choose to cut out of my diet. But consider that you might, as I say, you might need to make that judgment. What are the things that actually would really help my body if I just cut them out? Okay. If there was something that I feel like I'm reacting to and it's an overreaction, I might start with just, like, let's say someone has an allergic response to tomatoes. You know, you might start if you can. Yeah, at one point I was getting very stressed. I must eat organic, but I think the stress was probably causing me more problems than the fact it wasn't organic. I might just pick up a tomato and look at it and say, this is a safe food. All right. And, you know, unless you've done a test and your doctor says, oh, you are allergic to such and such. I know someone who's allergic to eggs, all right? And so they don't eat eggs anymore at the moment. Then I might eat a tiny, tiny amount. I might smell the food. Okay, I'm safe. Okay, doing all those things I've just mentioned. All right. So you don't need to eat it straight away. We're just giving the body to experience that it's okay, that we're safe. Okay. As I say, I did cut out certain things to begin with. And now I don't eat masses of them. But I'm completely, you know, sometimes I'm out, I'm hungry. I'll have a sandwich from the supermarket. It doesn't really cause me any issues, but I'm not eating loads of that because I actually think my body is better without it. So, hang on. Seems to have stopped. So let me know if that's the case for you, that the video's stopped. I've recently begun reintroducing bread, but yes, flourless. It's difficult to quit the bread. So yummy. Yeah, so, you know, I did find that sourdough bread just agreed with me. And actually, one of the things, I've just bought a cookbook, which is all about, I've got it here somewhere, which is about keto recipes. So it's not using wheat. And so I'm going to start experimenting with making bread without wheat. Okay. Oh, Jenny's saying everything's fine her end. So it might be an issue your end, Natalie. Hope you've joined us back. So I want to tie up, but let's just briefly talk about the science, because this isn't just about mindset work. So number one, I've talked about neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change with use. Okay, remember Pavlov and his dogs. Pavlov rang a bell, and when he served them food, and they started to associate the bell with food. So when they heard the bell, they started to salivate. In the same way, we can associate food, perfume, smell of laundry powder, and other smells, maybe cleaning products, with danger. Whereas when we start to retrain our nervous system and associate calm with exposure to those things, again and again, the brain learns this isn't a threat. I am safe. Okay. So there is a concept called extinction learning. This comes from phobia treatment. And it's a process of unlearning the fear response through safe, gentle exposure. And this is proven in anxiety, PTSD, chronic pain, and some immune conditions. We know that we can process pain. There's studies on chronic pain where people have used these tools to, even in the presence of pain, generate the sense of safety, and their pain signals start to dial down. Okay, and we can apply those principles to these food sensitivities. There may be some neuroimmune reaction. Research is showing that the brain and the immune system are in constant communication. When one is on high alert, so is the other. So you're not imagining it, but you can influence it. So if you're dealing with this right now, you're not alone. You're not doing anything wrong. If the brain training hasn't shifted your food sensitivities, it doesn't mean it won't. There's a whole nother layer, which is the emotional brain can be communicating via the body to let us know we're not meeting our needs. That's whole topic. That's something I teach people in the Mind Body Reconnect. We've just started a 12-week course, and that's a whole different area. So I won't go into it now, but I have made a video on that. So if you want to watch that video, comment mind below, and I will again post that video. So Manuela says, same principles when reacting to supplements and medication. I would always say approach this in the spirit of experimentation, okay? So Natalie's back now, and I see we've got quite a few people from Germany on this live, so welcome to all of you. Nice to have you all with us. So yeah, if you want to watch that video, which is about the mind-body connection, comment mind below. So consider that, and certainly just to go back to your point, Manuela, for me, if you know, because I've worked with a lot of people who have sensitivities around supplements, and we look at just again small exposure, just lick the supplement. We want to train our mind body physiology that we are safe. So we might start with a kind of micro dose, okay? So you'll have a little bit of homework, Daniela, but yeah, I will pop the link below this video when I've finished. All right, so consider that we want to retrain our mind body physiology. Your body just might need a different input if you've been doing brain training and you don't feel like you're getting results with that. One that focuses, an approach that focuses more on safety, okay, than fixing or suppression. One that recognizes that your immune system is your protector, but it might be overreacting, okay? It's not malfunctioning, it's just overreacting. You're not broken, your body is doing its best to keep you safe. With gentleness, repetition, and support, it can learn to respond differently. So if this video resonated, do let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what's worked for you, you know, where you have used techniques and found you've got benefit. Let me know. If you've got a request for a video you'd like me to make, I am going to make a note of Daniela's comment that I need to make a video talking more about hypnotherapy, so that's going to go on the list. Yes, if you've got a topic you'd like me to do, let me know, and if it's something I feel I've got something sensible to say, I will go deeper on that topic. So thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. Remember, your body is on your side. It's not your enemy. It's your ally, and it's learning. Okay? So thank you, everybody, for joining me. If you like this video, do share with others, and I hope to see some of you on the Resilience Group coaching. We meet every 2 weeks. One time is kind of UK, Europe friendly, Australia, New Zealand friendly. Another time is more America friendly, UK friendly. Jenny says thank you. You are very welcome. Thank you all for joining me. And until next time, dare to dream big dreams. You're welcome, Daniela. Keep going. Take small steps. Okay, small steps add up. See you in the next live session. Bye for now.